Good morning, everyone. Please let me know if you can hear this, and then I'll introduce myself. Great, thank you, Judy. I appreciate knowing that. My name is Kristen, and same last name as Eric. However, we are not related. I think we've talked about that previously, but to anyone that's new, Eric, I think he told you he's in the process of moving, and he called me this morning, and it was just going to be a little difficult for him to connect this morning in time. So he asked me if I would cover for him today, but he does assure me that he will be back tomorrow and the rest of the week, so we can all look forward to that. But today I thought, thank you, Kathy, thank you all, I appreciate that. If you have questions, if you could put them in the chat, and you could just maybe put a question mark in front, or some Q's, large Q's, something so I would recognize that it is in fact a question, and I can try to address that. But I do have some things I thought we could talk about, and we'll just start there, I guess, unless someone has something they're interested in asking about. So I just wanted to remind everyone that HELPS is a nationwide law firm helping senior citizens and disabled people who have unsecured debt they cannot afford to pay. And HELP's mission is basically twofold: to protect seniors and the disabled from debt collector harassment, and also to educate seniors on how to maintain their financial independence. So that's what Eric does primarily when he does these YouTube videos. He not only YouTube Live, but also all the other videos he's done, talks about seniors and disabled people's rights, especially when they are on Social Security or other federally protected income. So, one of the more common, first off, let me say that I do speak with a lot of people on the phone. So when someone new calls in, I may speak with them. I may have spoken with a number of you, either when you were new or along the way. But one of the most common themes is they are suffering from debt collector harassment, and they kind of can't take it anymore. And so what we do is we ask them, if they have enrolled, we ask them for information on the creditor or collector that's harassing them, and all we need is a name, an address, and an account number, or if they don't have the account number, we can use the Social Security number, and then we can send a cease and desist letter to these creditors or collectors, and that would require them to stop contacting you. Now, in the interim, you can always not answer your phone, but I know it's difficult when people are calling you, and the natural inclination is to answer the phone, but maybe that's not always the best. You can just look and see who's calling, and if you don't recognize the name or the number, you just don't have to answer. And if it's someone that really wants to contact you and that you really want to speak with, you'll likely see their name there, and you can either pick up the phone or you can call them back. So either way, but what we do is we send out those cease and desist letters so that the calls will stop. The calls, the emails, all that, the letters, all that will stop. And that's a real comfort to people, naturally. And so then I know most of you that have been listening for a while, or that are members of HELPS, you would know this, but the other thing we talk to people about so often is having just one bank checking account where their Social Security is directly deposited. And then any other funds that they receive, those would also go into that same bank checking account, because that account is always automatically protected from garnishment up to 2 times the amount of their monthly Social Security benefit. And so for instance, if you receive $1,000 a month in Social Security benefits, and then you might have part-time wages, or you might have sold something or have had a gift of money, anything like that. If you put that in the same account with your Social Security, that bank account is always automatically protected from garnishment up to 2 times the amount of the federal benefits. So in this case, $2,000 would always be automatically protected in that account. And that's something that people don't, a lot of times when people call, they have no idea about that. And so that's one thing that we talk about a lot, and I send an article. Eric has written many articles. Oftentimes they might have a little video with them. And the one on bank accounts protected from garnishment is one that I send out almost universally, because it's such a good concept to grasp. And of course, it doesn't matter how many accounts you have if you've never been sued and you don't have any judgments against you, because a creditor would have to have a judgment before they could actually take money out of your account or even attempt to do that. But assuming that you do have a judgment or you might be sued at some time, it's a good practice to get into, just to have the one bank checking account where all your income's directly deposited. So, yeah. Okay, so Laura, I see your question. Where is he moving to? I believe he said, I think that he said this the other day, New Orleans. Yeah, so he will be in Sunset. You knew that. He'd be in Louisiana. Yeah, so it'll be a little change of scenery for him, but it'll be a good time, I think. I think he's excited about it. And but he will still be around. He will be doing YouTube Live. He'll be available on the phone. So if anyone has questions, of course, they can always contact any of us, and Eric will be around. So let's see, skip the questions today, but the help's phone number is available. Right. Okay, so in case anyone doesn't have it, 855-435-7787. I believe it's right there on the screen, so you can always get a hold of us that way for sure. And Mary, thank you. Yeah, we're always grateful for Eric to be doing YouTube Live, but once in a while he's got a conflict, and that was the case today. So let's see. Yeah, trying to get my mother, age 87. This is Roxanne. Question: I'm trying to get my mother, age 87, out of a timeshare contract. Can the timeshare come after her savings, which I'm managing closely for assisted living? You know, it almost never happens like that. So what does happen is you just surrender the timeshare. And I've got an article on that, a really great, maybe there are two, really great articles on surrendering a timeshare. It's just so easy to do. And Roxanne, I would be happy to email that to you. I don't know if you're enrolled in HELPS or not, but regardless, if you email me, and it's just kolsen@helpsishere.org, like you see on the phone, that www.helps with an S on the end is here.org. If you just substitute www, if you put in KOLSEN, it will come to me, and I would be glad to send you that information. Understood that you're managing your mom's account very closely. And the fact of the matter is, if it's you say a savings, I don't know if the source of that income was Social Security or not, or other federal funds, because that's going to be protected. So we can talk about that. If you want to give me a call, or if you want to email me, definitely I'd be glad to send you some information and answer your question in detail once I knew a little bit more about, you say, a savings. So if there's more than that in there, and if it's Social Security, it would still be protected automatically up to 2 times the amount of the monthly Social Security deposit. Otherwise, it would still be protected. Anything over and above that is just not the automatic protection. So we can talk about that. So yeah, so email me or call me, Roxanne. It's easier if you email me because I do get a lot of phone calls. What about pension? Is that protected? It is protected. If it is a federal pension, then it's going to get automatic protection just like Social Security. If it is not a federal pension, it is still protected. It just doesn't get the automatic protection. However, let's just say your mom's income is Social Security of, we'll just use round numbers, $2,000 a month in Social Security, $1,000 in a private pension. Well, okay, that account is still going to be automatically protected up to $4,000, which is 2 times her monthly Social Security benefit, whatever funds are in there. So it doesn't matter. It could be pension, it could be part-time wages, anything, and that's going to be protected. Yeah, so no worries. If it's more than that, once again, if it's more than in that example, $2,000 or $4,000, then it wouldn't be automatically protected over that amount, but it is still protected. Yeah, so no worries there. And oh, you're so welcome, Roxanne. Then another thing that we hear a lot about is, not as much as some things, but I hear this a lot. People have health issues and they're struggling with debt, and they don't want to file bankruptcy. Understood. You know, it's not for everyone, for sure, and you'd have to attend a hearing, and it's a lot of paperwork, and it's kind of intimidating. So understood that it's not always in your best interest, and most of the time for seniors or disabled people, it is totally unnecessary. So just give us a call. That's the best I can say. Just give us a call, because it's a free call, and we would be glad to talk to you at length if necessary about all these things. We go through a little questionnaire, and that's going to give us the background information we need to be able to answer your questions. And so, assuming you have health issues and debt you can't afford to pay, you're on Social Security income, you're struggling, that's primarily what we do here. We take care of that situation. So yeah, just give us a call. Another thing that I hear with some frequency, and perhaps a number of you mentioned this when you first called us, and that is, I've always paid my debt. And so it's really a hard step for people to take, from always having paid their debt to not being able to pay it. And sometimes it happens because you were employed and things were going well. Maybe you were also receiving Social Security, so maybe you were a little bit older, or maybe not. And then you find yourself with health problems. You can't work part-time anymore. Things just kind of balloon, and it's really a hard thing for people to accept that they've always paid their debt and now they can't afford to. So we understand. There's not one person here that doesn't understand your situation and isn't sympathetic to it. So it's no worries to give us a call, and we'd like to talk to you. So yeah. And then I kind of mentioned this a little bit, but sometimes seniors that have retired, they want to go back to work. They miss working. They miss so many things about it. Primarily men, I would say, because they don't necessarily have the social circle that some of us women have. So they are stuck at home, and things happen, you know. So it's best to keep active and keep your mind active if you certainly can. And if you want to work, you can work part-time. And the way you can protect those part-time wages, well, first of all states have some sort of protection for wages, so that even if you have a judgment against you, the minimum that's going to be protected in take-home pay is $217.50 a week. So that's about $940 some dollars. That's the federal protection, and most states have more protections than that. Some have, no wage garnishments at all. So if you want to work and you're able to, you can do that. And then if that money goes in the same account with Social Security, that bank account will always be automatically protected from garnishment, like we said, up to 2 times the amount of your federal benefits, which for most people it's Social Security. Could be other things like VA benefits or railroad retirement, different OPM, different things like that would be federally protected. And so you can double all that and it would be automatically protected in your account as long as the account didn't go over 2 times the monthly federal deposit. So, yeah. Okay, so Mary has a question about, she checked her credit report a few days ago. Apparently Capital One has charged my account off. So what is a charge off? And can she still be sued and or receive a 1099-C? 1099-C is a cancellation of debt. And sometimes, really not that often, we don't hear about it all that often, but a creditor that has charged off a debt can send you a 1099-C. And so what that would be is they would send it to you and you'd be required to add that into your tax return that you file. Now, if you don't file a tax return, you probably don't need to just because you got a 1099-C. And a 1099-C talks about whatever you owed that particular creditor and didn't pay. So if you owed them $10,000 and you hadn't paid it, they could send you a 1099-C for $10,000. So once again, usually most of our clients don't have to file tax returns, and it's not enough to require them to file a return. It's sort of a fictitious income because it's not money that you received, it's just money that you did not have to pay. And we have quite a lengthy article that discusses all that, so that if a person does need to file a return and they have received a 1099-C, then it goes through all the paperwork, and and if you have questions, you can call us about it. But we're glad to send you that article, and I think that was written by Kaisa, one of the other attorneys here, and she did an excellent job. It just goes through everything, and it would be really helpful if, in fact, you think you need to file. So we'd be glad to send you that. Okay, what about real estate holdings outside of your homestead exemption if they get a judgment for credit card debt? Okay, yin yang. Well, okay. So if she's talking about, here she is talking about real estate that's not your homestead, so you don't live in there. So maybe you have a rental home. Maybe it was a parent's home and they left it to you, but you don't need it, you have your own home, so you haven't sold it, you've just simply rented it out. Or whatever, but you still have it. And so she's wondering if a judgment could be affixed to that home too, if you have a judgment against you. Okay, well, generally, creditors need to file a lawsuit against you in the jurisdiction where you reside. So if you reside in a particular county, which we all do, they would be required to file a lawsuit in that particular county. Now, some states do have it so that if a judgment is entered, it may be a lien on all the property in the state that you own or have an interest in. But if it's out of state, or sometimes I spoke with someone that had property out of the country in Canada, and they're not going to transfer a judgment to Canada. I mean, it's just, first of all, they don't know about that property to do it. And secondly, it would be too expensive to try and do that and monitor it. No, that's not going to happen. And generally, if a person has property that they own in another state, that's not going to be an issue. But let's assume, for argument here, with Yin Yang's question, that it's in the same county, and so there will be a judgment lien against that property. If in fact there's a judgment lien at all, there would be a judgment lien on the homestead as well as the other piece of property. Now, so it depends. If one of those properties is sold, then likely that judgment lien would be paid. It's not going to, they're never going to receive more than what you owe them. So even though it's a judgment lien on 2 or more properties, if one of them is sold and they get paid off, that's it. The judgment lien would be gone. So if in fact you own property in a different way, like if you're a married couple and you own property together and one of you has a judgment against you and it becomes a lien on any real estate you own, and maybe it's just the other one that owns the real estate or that doesn't have a judgment, and if you pass away first and your spouse doesn't have any judgment liens, then your judgment liens would fall away when you pass away. And sometimes people put other people on their property with them. So if you have an adult child that you trust and you want to have them to have the property when you're gone, you can put them on there. And typically our children survive us. So they would, if it's a joint tenancy, for instance, with rights of survivorship, then if they survive you, they would get the property free and clear of any of your judgment liens. So I hope that answers your question. And then I'm a client of HELPS. Do you give advice about W-2 being messed up and file taxes? We don't give advice, but we do give information. So about W-2 being messed up and filed taxes, waiting to hear from the IRS on that issue. Not sure if I will get my refund or owe them. So why don't you call in, Ms. H, and we can talk about that. And I might ask you a few more questions. But if the W-2 was messed up, at least theoretically they should have sent you an amended W-2, and then you could amend your returns. Maybe that's not quite your question, so let me know. Give me a call or give one of the other attorneys or one of the paralegals a call here, and we can discuss that. And Sunset Cliff, you're never going back to work. Understood. Let's see. A podcast on the pros and cons of reverse mortgage. Do they have a dangerous downside? That's Linda's question. Linda, we've got I've got an article, a great article, in fact 2. The one, Eric's done both of these. The one is reverse mortgage, when does it make sense? And he's got at least one video with that. And there's a link to the video right in the article. And he speaks with Ken Krajewski, who is a person that has done, I don't know how, I imagine thousands of reverse mortgages. He's very good at it. He knows the ropes, and he has been really good to our clients. We don't have any financial interest in having you do a reverse mortgage, but it has been a great thing for a number of our clients. And I'd be glad to email you that article, and you could look at those videos, because it really explains a lot about it, and I think it would answer your questions. And do they have a dangerous downside? Basically, the deal is you can, assuming you qualify and all that, and you can live in the home the rest of your life, and then when you pass away, depending on the equity that's in the home, if there's equity, then maybe your heirs would want that. They could either buy out the reverse, or they could refinance it, or do whatever they want. So I don't really think that there's a dangerous downside. If you're someone that wants to give your surviving children or child the home, then you might not want to do a reverse, but it allows you to stay in the home for the rest of your life without making house payments and perhaps having a line of credit that you can access so that you're more comfortable. And that's kind of the idea behind it, and it's a good one. So let's see here. They did take out the right FICA taxes from income. Okay. I'm not sure what the W-2 being messed up was then. Maybe you could articulate that. Living in New York City, can I open a checking account in a state that does not do garnishments? Would it be protected? Well, you're living, let's see, you're living in New York City. Do you want to have a local Texas bank? Because if it's a national bank, they've got they've got offices or branches everywhere, so it's not going to really help you. I guess if you live just over the border of Texas and your state, like just into Oklahoma, and it was convenient for you to bank at a local Texas bank, then that could be a possibility. Are funds in a pooled income trust protected from garnishment? Okay, the idea behind a trust, most trusts, would be either revocable or irrevocable, and that's kind of the key. So if it's an irrevocable trust that you have, then it's likely not going to be garnished because you can't make any changes to it. Let's see. Okay. They didn't take out the right FICA taxes. That's how it messed up. May owe and not get a refund. Yeah, if they didn't take out enough taxes, that could be an issue. If you're one that has to file a return, typically you were employed or had some sort of other income aside from Social Security and pension, and they didn't take out the right amount of taxes. Yeah, you very easily could owe those taxes. Now, you may, depending on what your income is right now, you may be able to, if we're talking about the IRS, you may be able to get on currently not collectible status. And that's something for people with a certain amount of income, below a certain amount. If you're single or if you're married, they're different numbers. And so perhaps you wouldn't have to pay it. You would owe it, but you never have to pay it. And if you make a little bit more, maybe you could get on a repayment plan for a very small amount. That also is a possibility. You'd like to get the link, Linda. Linda, are you a client so that I would have your email address? Let me write your name down so I don't forget. And if you are a client, and I can't look that up right now, but if you're a client, I would have your email address. And if not, you'd need to provide that to me so that I can get it, and I'd be glad to send you that article on reverse mortgages, yes. Post the email address. Well, I can just tell you, if you look right under my picture there, you'll see Helps Law Firm, Kristen Olsen attorney, and it gives our phone number and the website. But if you take off that www, instead of that, put the letter K and then the last name Olsen. So K Olsen at helpsishere.org. I don't know quite how to post it. I don't know if I can put something in the chat myself or not. So hopefully you've got that, and if you do, then I'd be glad to send that to you if you ask me. So yeah, I'd be glad to do that. And I can see someone has already emailed me about one of those things, so glad to do that for her, and I'd be glad to do that for you. So, what about a personal loan that was taken to pay off credit cards? Would one's Social Security and VA benefits be protected if I stop payments? Absolutely, MCAT. Yes, they would. So, those monies are protected. There's very little that can come between you and your Social Security and VA benefits, okay? Very little. And any kind of personal loan, any kind of credit card debt, medical, unsecured loans, even secured loans, they really can't get at your Social Security and VA benefits. Now, if you bank at a credit union and you owe the credit union money, that is a different story. And that's why we almost always recommend you're with one bank and you just have the one bank checking account as opposed to a credit union account. And hopefully that's not Truist Bank, because they're acting like a credit union. So a credit union, when you sign up for that, you sign something that allows them to take out money from your account regardless of the source of the funds. But if you bank with a regular bank or even a credit union where you don't owe them any money, then your Social Security and VA benefits will automatically be protected if you stop payments on a personal loan. So yeah, how is it legal to attach a judgment lien to my property when I'm judgment proof and never should have been attributed the judgment in the first place? I went to court in Wisconsin. Well, judgment proof. That means you don't have anything that a creditor can take from you. However, if you have real estate, they can put a lien on that real estate. And depending, if you owned it on your own and there's a judgment lien on there, typically you have more equity in there. And so, I guess you could be fully encumbered with a mortgage, in which case they wouldn't ever get paid, but likely there's going to be some money in there, and if it's a judgment lien, that would be paid. I'm sorry that happened to you. What about Chime? A lot of people have a Chime account. I'm not quite sure why they do it, because if you have a regular bank checking account, that account is always going to be automatically protected from garnishment up to 2 times the amount of your monthly Social Security or other federal benefits. Let's just say you just get VA and you don't VA benefits and you don't have Social Security. That doesn't matter. It's a federal benefit, and 2 times that monthly benefit is always going to be automatically protected. And it's so convenient to have a bank account. You can have a debit card with it. You can go the old-fashioned way and write checks. You can just do everything that you'd want to do out of that one bank checking account. And so that's what I usually recommend. These online accounts, I'm just not so sure about, but Eric might tell you that would be fine. But for me, I just prefer a regular bank checking account. Let's see, can you address defaulting on an SBA loan and the difference? Okay, so that's one of the areas that they can take federal benefits, because that's a federal debt. So, there's not a lot that we can do about that, but that's the difference between that and a credit card debt. The SBA is very difficult to deal with. Eric does have an article on that as well. So that's an area where it's a problem for people. But it's very different from a credit card debt, because if you have a credit card debt, that's unsecured and they can't take your federal funds, or if they're in a bank account, they can't take anything for sure up to 2 times the amount of your federal benefits. And if those other if the other money in there is protected income like a pension or something, and you have more than 2 times your federal benefits, those are also going to be protected. Okay, Emily, not everyone can get bank accounts. That's why Chime, PayPal, Venmo accounts. You're right. You're right. Yeah. Okay. My late son used Chime and he really liked it. When he passed, I had no problem going to a bank that he used to take his death certificate and close his account. That was 4 years ago. Okay. Yeah, I just prefer a regular bank, but if you want to bank with Chime, I have not heard where anyone has had their account garnished with Chime. So, there you have it. Okay, so let's see. Another thing that a lot of times people, they might not even say it, but when I'm going through talking to someone for the first time, we might be talking about all kinds of things related to their debt and their assets and such. And maybe they have a vehicle with a really high payment and they struggle to pay it. And they think that they can't get out of it. Well, not so. You can, and I've got 2 articles that Eric wrote on this. Surrendering a vehicle, same thing as surrendering an RV. But surrendering a vehicle, you can absolutely surrender that, and if they take the vehicle back, and then what happens is they would sell it, and they would send you what's called a letter of deficiency. Excuse me. And that letter of deficiency would say, you owed X number of dollars, we got Y for it when we sold it, and now you owe Z. Well, that's like any other unsecured debt. Excuse me, any other unsecured debt. So yeah, not to worry about that at all. And then there's an article that Eric has on cars for cash. And if you, once again, I'm going to start coughing, so just a second, I'm going to take a drink of water. Sorry about that. I talk too much and I have a little heater going and that dries the air out, and anyway, I start coughing. But so for instance, if you decide to surrender a car, you just quit making the payments on it, and then you save up that money that you were, making those payments, and maybe after a couple months they pick up the car. Well, if you're not in a big hurry to get rid of it, and you keep your insurance on it, you can keep driving it until they pick it up. And then hopefully you've got a little bit of money put aside to get another car. Now, it wouldn't be the car of your dreams, but it would get you from here to there. And once again, Eric's got a really great article on affordable transportation that we're always happy to send to people. And that's been kind of a godsend for a lot of people that think they're hooked into a hefty car payment that they just can't afford anymore. So that's always an option for you. Okay, let's see, Kathy. I do too. I just wanted to let the people know that Chime worked for my son. Yes, he used Chime because of his ex-wife messed their credit up and he was rebuilding his credit. I don't use Chime, I prefer a bank. Well, yeah, I think if a bank works for you, that's my preference, but if it doesn't, one of these online accounts probably would. So I do stand corrected on that probably it's not going to be an issue. It's just not my preference, but yeah. So yeah, and anyway, back to the car. You can save up a little money and get a car for cash. Eric writes a nice article about that, and then you've got something that'll get you from here to there, and your insurance will be less because it's an older vehicle, not as expensive. So yeah. And Emily drives a 1998 Honda Accord. It's older than dirt. Best car ever. Hondas run forever. I had a Honda, and I had over, I believe it was 230,000 miles on it when it finally kind of bit the dust. So it wasn't worth fixing after that. But some go for longer. And yeah, like you say, it's best car ever. Yeah, they can be. And you don't worry about it. If you have a new car, you park it way away in the parking lot, and then by golly, somebody parks right next to you. Or, it seems to be a target a little bit. Whereas if you have an older car, you just don't have to worry about it. So it gets another scratch or another dent. It doesn't really matter. If it's not terrible, most people don't notice it. And you would, but it doesn't really bother a person, really. And hey, you've got a car that you don't have payments on. And that is a blessing for people. Car payments are the next largest payment that people have absent their either mortgage or rent. And of course, rents these days are so high. If you can get into a home, your monthly payment would usually be significantly less. It can be anyway, significantly less. So yeah, you agree they last forever. Yeah, they do. Yeah, take the old Honda to the store. Yeah. Yes. Well, that was kind of what I had in mind to speak about today. It's been great talking with you and answering questions. And as I said, Eric will be back tomorrow. He plans to be back the rest of the week. It was just a little bit of a time crunch that he wouldn't be able to get set up to do it today. He's feeling fine. He sounds great. And so yeah, he'll be back on board tomorrow, I have no doubt. So if that's it, let's see. Yes, and I'll say this early, but if Easter is something you celebrate, I hope it's a wonderful one for you this year. So thank you so much, and happy Easter. Bye-bye.